was there during the Blitz in London. I remember having to take gas masks everywhere with us. They were skeletons. They were awful. It took me a long time to like German people. Every time the siren went off, we had to go down.
Just for those of us who don't know you, if you could just give us a little bit of an introduction and kind of tell us who you are.
My name is Barbara Crider, with a C, and I was born in 1938, and England went to war in late 39, and I was there during the Blitz in London. And I was only a little girl, but I remember it so well. I remember having to take gas masks everywhere with us, and I was in school because we went to school at 4 years old in England, and we had to carry them, and I happened to be under the age, so I got a red one with a big long nose on it, so it would make me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And then after they decided that all the children had to be out of London, we had to be evacuated. And there were government evacuations, and you could do a private evacuation. And my mother at the time was working in a factory like all the women in England were, and her boss had mother and father living in Wales. So we were sent to Wales. I remember going up and standing on the station with my two sisters, who were 8 and 10, and we got to Wales. And it didn't happen to be a very nice place. It wasn't very clean, and they weren't very interested in us girls. They were just interested in getting the rations, because everything in England was rationed at that time. Your food, your clothes, everything. And so they got the rations for us for being up there. So it was, I can remember when we first got there, that it's so funny I should remember this, but I had a bed. And at that time, they made the beds with the mesh linings inside of the bed for the bed springs. And mine was so old, it had my bottom was sticking on the floor, and my legs and my head were up. And my sisters had bunk beds. But they didn't include us as a family when we went to eat with them. They would take the butter and we would have to eat the marge. That's kind of the family they were. And so my sister, who was 10, she kind of took care of us. And we went to a Welsh school. I can't remember the name of the town in Wales. It was a very small town. And we went to a Welsh school because I was so little and we couldn't speak Welsh, so they kind of made fun of us. And we didn't stay there very long. And then I remember we used to walk around the lanes there, and we would just walk so much that we wore the leather out in the bottom of our shoes. And we saw this church and we thought, oh, we'd like to go to church. We couldn't find the door. So we found a door and we walked in, and we ended up being in the choir. So there was another lady there, was a very nice lady. She was with the government, and she knew how hard we were having it. And so she was really nice to us. But it's so vivid that my parents came to see us. We were supposed to be there for 3 months, and They came in 6 weeks, and it was so bad. My mother said, my daughters are not living here. And so she took us back. And because there were still bombs, and they called them incendiary bombs. They were really small bomb, but they would be, you could see them on the sidewalks. You know, there was little holes about that big.
Wow.
And my sister said that my father, we were all in, at that time, we were in the, down, I can't think of the name of it, in the, underneath the ground.
Like in a bunker?
A bunker, yeah. And every time the siren went off, we had to go down there. And my father was gone for a long time. We didn't know where he was. He got out, but they were bombing all of our street. And so the men were out putting sand on the bombs to put them out.
Really? So even after they had exploded, they were still on fire?
I guess. I don't know if some of them exploded.
Oh, wow.
Some of them didn't explode. And everybody had them, and some of the houses were on fire, because I didn't see that because I was in the shelter. And but we had one bomb, but it was in the garden. And so my father he took it to work and got it taken care of, because it was still alive.
So there were some bombs that were dropping that hadn't even exploded, and they were in your backyard.
Yeah, they were all up and down the street.
Oh, wow.
So we did that, and the rationing was so strong, as I said, that I never did see a banana. I didn't know what a banana was.
Really?
Until, yeah. And I got to get one because I had a green ration card, and that was for people, young toddlers, school people. And so I remember Mother and Dad took us to the movie occasionally. Nobody had cars because the petrol was so high. There weren't any cars on the road. Maybe a few rich people did. And we went to the theater, which you call a movie, and they would have the news on there. And you would see the news of all these people that had been taken by the Germans, the Jews. And it was, I remember it. They were skeletons. They were awful.
Wow.
But our king and queen, they stayed in London, and you would see films of them walking around the damage. And I guess it was so bad that people were putting cots up on the train stations to sleep. It was really, really, really bad. And that rationing went on for years. It went on until I think the war was over in 1945.
Really? It was that long?
Yeah, I think it was.
So from 1939?
Well, yeah, 40, 39, 40, right
1939, 1940 to 1945, you guys were on rations?
Yeah.
Whoa. So what was the things that you were the basic necessities that you would get? Would you get flour was main thing, or bread?
Yeah, we would get we would get grocery rations for a week. We would there wasn't very much meat. There was because we were an island and we couldn't get anything coming in to us. But we didn't know any different. I didn't know any different, so I didn't realize that I was living in a difficult time. But England was really bombed. You couldn't believe it. It was just London was just destroyed, and they rebuilt it, of course. And I'm trying to think of anything else of interest that I could tell you.
Yeah, when you were do you remember when you would go to school? Were you guys going to school around this time, even when you're getting bombed?
Yeah.
And how was all the streets are blown up?
Well, yeah, it was not that bad because they were only small bombs.
Okay.
But they we went to school and we wore our masks. We took our masks with us. We didn't have to wear them. But we had air raid shelters inside the school so that we could all go or put our head under the desk or something.
Oh, wow.
But I don't remember that happening a lot because...
and I know they bombed like a lot of the eastern side, like where the docks were.
Yeah.
Do you remember ever seeing that?
No, because I was right just outside of London, so that I wasn't near any coast at all.
But did you ever like hear the Luftwaffe?
Yeah.
Like going over you guys?
Yeah.
And like, what was the reaction when you guys would hear the planes?
Well, we would get the siren, and so we'd go down to the bunker.
So every time you would hear the planes, that means automatically you're going to the bunker.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So.
And you said your mom worked in a factory. I know, like in the phase 2 that they call it, like the 14th to the 15th of November, I think it was 1940. Like the Germans went on a rampage where they were like bombing all the factories. So like, were you ever scared like for your mom or
no?
Since she was working in the factories,
we didn't have that many bombs with us. We were in, about an hour or so outside of London. So, but no, that factory didn't get bombed because Mother didn't say anything. But it was so weird because I was so little and I can't remember things today. But I even remember what we were wearing when we were in the train station. Because Mother used to dress us alike, and since I was the smallest, my two sisters would dress, but it was all the same hat and coat, but in different colors. So, and it's something that I worry about now when I see what's going on in the world right now, because some of it seems so familiar, and it wasn't a very nice time at all, and. We didn't have telephones, because we didn't have televisions. I remember watching the first television, and the man across the street from us owned a radio shop where they sold them. And all the kids were on the outside looking in these little tiny boxes. So at Christmas time, he would let us all come in and watch a little of the television.
Oh, wow.
But, it was just normal life. I remember when the war ended, and I remember that we had fire, but we built bonfires in the middle of the streets, and everybody was singing and getting drunk.
So everyone was happy that those
But after the war, we didn't really have much. But I know that the food was really short, and I know the clothes were really short, and even hose. Everything was rationed. And so, as I said, yes, it was a very hard time. So I feel lucky that I grew up, and I can know that you can get out of these situations if they do happen. But it's a very hard time. And as I said, I just worry now about what's going on in this country.
Like, what were your attitudes like, since you guys are going at war with Germany? Like, what are your guys' like? How do you guys look at Germany? Because like from my perspective, like when we read it in the history books and stuff, like Germany's like this very bad nation. They do these bad things. Like they're like pretty much compared to like the devil. Like, what was your guys' like? How did you guys see them when you were growing up and they're doing these things to you? Like, would it be like how I now like look at like Iran, like bombing like other countries?
Yes.
Do you see it like that, or do you see it like way worse?
I saw it way worse because I felt like it was just coming to us, And it took me a long time to like German people, because the first reaction was, you supported him, Hitler. And it took a long time, and I'm sure still today, some of the English people aren't crazy about German people.
Really, to this day?
Yeah, I don't know about the younger generation, but I think my generation, which is not a lot of us left. So, anything else you can think of that you want to ask me?
Yeah, so you guys still had like a resentment even after the war ended?
Oh, yeah.
Against the Germans?
Yeah.
And like, say like there was tourists going to England, to London. Like, and you guys knew they were Germans. Like, would you guys look at them a certain way when they're walking down the street,
Yeah.
or like, what was your attitudes towards them?
Negative. Yeah.
Would you make comments, or would people make comments to them on the side, or like?
I don't know, because I wasn't in London.
Mm-hmm.
Where we lived, it was a little town, which was about. I don't know if you've ever heard of Hampton Court Palace.
Hampton, yeah.
Well, I was born in Hampton.
Okay.
And owned by the River Thames, and we the big park was where Eisenhower had his station. He was there during World War II. But and they had all these what they called Nissen huts for the soldiers to live in, and that I can remember that very well. And when I went back after about 50 years for a couple of days. And I was in Hampton Court. We went down to see Hampton Court. The gardens are beautiful there. And I looked down the river and I saw where I used to live. And I said, I was with this girlfriend. And she said, do you want to go there? You want to walk down there? So we walked down there. So it took about 12 minutes to walk. And the river still had, when my father, we were little, occasionally we would get to go on the river in a rowboat. And they were still having boats there now, not the rowboats, but different boats. And there was a pub on there, and that was still there. And even walking along the street back to Hampton Court, the railings on the street were the same. It was really strange that so much was still this. Oh, that's the mic. Still the strange, still the same there, and the stations. When I worked in London for a while. I was 18, and I worked in a fashion house, and they used to sell the clothes to the big stores. Like the middleman, they were the middleman.
Okay.
And I can remember working there, and when the buyers would come in, I would have to take tea into them.
Really?
Yeah. And so I worked in London for quite a long time, and then I worked in I can't remember. I worked in a big store, and when I went back, it was already gone.
Okay.
But a lot of the big stores are still there. And I was only there for one night, so I didn't get to see a lot. But I still, I'm an American citizen now, and I'm proud to be. Not so much at this time, but I'm proud to be. And then when I came over to my sister in '61, her husband was in the Air Force in Salina, Kansas. Okay, and it was so filled with, there wasn't any place to live there. So my sister and her husband bought a little place outside of town. It was called Gypsum. And when I came over from the United States. I didn't know what to expect. And they had dirt roads.
So it was a big culture shock for you.
Huh? Was
it a big culture shock for you when you moved here to the U.S.?
Yeah, yeah, it was. I thought I came to the end of the earth. So, but to get into England and the United States, you had to have you went to London and they drew out the hat because there was only so many places that you could go, but you had to have a job before you came, and you had to have someone support you so you wouldn't be living off the government. And I came in '61. My sister said, "I've got a job for you," and I said, "Okay." And I was working in the newspaper.
Oh, wow.
But it was a little teeny newspaper, and there was only the man that ran it and me. And I had this strong English accent. I'd have to call every Sunday and say, "Who came to dinner on Monday?" I called. "Who came to dinner on Sunday at your house?" And they couldn't understand me. I couldn't understand it. So it was very interesting. And then I lived with them until I got married, and then I moved to Salina. I lived in Salina until 2005. Became a hairdresser. I tried to go to school in England, but it was like $300. We didn't have that kind of money. So after I had 3 children, I still wanted to do it. So I went to school in Salina.
Okay.
And I had the 3 children. And then I became a hairdresser and did the facials. And I came here in 2005, and I worked just doing facials in a salon in Lawrence.
Okay.
And by the time I retired at 80, I'd been in it 50 years. Wow. So it was quite an experience.
So you just recently retired then?
Yeah, I'm 87 now.
Oh, wow.
And
what was it like growing up in London? Like when you're like after the war?
After the war.
Like is there a lot of reconstruction going on?
Well, there was in London, yeah. Not where we were. There wasn't so much damage.
Okay.
But I don't know. It was just normal for us because we didn't know anything else. We didn't remember before the war.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a public school. I happened to be a good athlete. Don't like to brag, but I was.
What sports did you play?
I did 100-mile dash, high jump, hurdles.
Yeah, oh yeah. You're a track and field star then.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and my sister was too, and she represented our county, the county.
Okay.
And I did too. I didn't do so good, but I did too. And then my daughter came along, and she represented. They had a big track meet in Nebraska, and it was for the Junior Olympics. And she represented them, and she had a lot of gold medals.
Wow.
So now I have 3 children. My son lives in Australia, and he's retired, and his wife's retired. So they're just living a life out there, going to different towns and that. And then my eldest daughter, who she became a nurse, and she was an instructor out at Washburn.
Okay, so she's not too far from here.
No, and then I have another daughter. She lives here too, and she works for KU in the accounting department. She works from home. And then I have 2 grandchildren here that are married and got children, and they live here too. My grandson owns Allen A-Team in construction, and he just opened a sports center down off of 6th Street here, indoors. So he's he has both of those.
Okay.
And then my granddaughter, she's married and has 2 little boys. And then my grandson has 2 girls, and they're 14 and 12. So they all live here. So I'm very fortunate to have so much people that can take care of me, so many people that can take care of me.
So what made you move to the U.S.?
Because I wanted to progress. In England, there was a really big class distinction, and I didn't feel like I could go anywhere, get anywhere. So
was it like class, like rich and poor, or really?
Well,
there was a big.
It wasn't a big middle class then. You know, it was rich and poor.
Wow.
But you know, I'm sure it's different now. But yeah, so I've had a really interesting life.
You think that had anything to do with the monarchy there, with that big gap
in England?
Mm-hmm. Like having a queen and king.
I don't know. I remember when the king died, I was 11, and when you were 11 in England, you had to take an exam, and if you passed that exam, you could go to like a special school, and then you could go to college. But if you didn't pass the exam, you went to the public school. And I didn't pass the exam. Yeah. I was so scared. And then he died that day. And then I remember Queen Elizabeth becoming her congregation. My sisters and I went up and we sat on the curb while her carriage went by.
Really? What was that like?
It was exciting. It was very exciting. But I don't feel like the English people pay as much attention to the royal family as what you do over here.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there.
Yeah. I feel like it was like much bigger back then.
Yeah.
And like now it's kind of died down. Like
it's died down, and they do more things, normal things.
Mm-hmm.
They're not so mighty,
But when you were growing up, they were like the president, pretty much, like they're really important people.
Yeah. I'm not quite like this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't say that.
Uh-huh.
But yeah.
But it's like everything else, like when you went to London that time, does like everything else, like I don't know if you've been back recently, but does everything look the same? Like was Big Ben there and all the Windsor and all that stuff?
All that stuff is still.
So if you go back, it's like kind of similar to what it was.
Yeah.
Maybe just a few new buildings.
Yeah, there's a few new buildings, and because the train station, I don't know how to use it now because it's not tickets.
Oh,
but I used to travel from where I lived, and I had to ride a bus, and then they called it a green train, and then the underground, they called it the underground, you call it the subway, to get to work. I had to ride those three things, and they were packed. So, yeah. And when I went back, I wish I had a little more time, but I was going to the Netherlands. My friends had bought me tickets to go to the Netherlands because they were getting married. And so I didn't have time, to do a lot. I walked around London looking for that place where I used to work, and it wasn't there anymore. Okay. It was gone. Yeah. So.
And how would people dress up back then? Because I always see like pictures and everyone's like in suits.
Oh yeah.
Women in dresses.
When I came over in '61, I wore a hat and a coat and gloves. I was on that plane forever. But yeah, you always wore hats and dresses, and even though you didn't have much money or clothing, I don't remember a lot of people not looking nice.
I know, like when I look at the pictures, like everyone was always presentable.
Yeah, and you didn't go out. You didn't go to church without a hat, which it used to be that way here. And if you look at the movies of the old theaters, everybody's dressed up with a tie and a suit. Yeah, and actually, it used to be here back in. I saw something on TV recently back in the '60s or whatever, and it was a theater, and everybody had a suit and tie.
When you came here to the U.S., did they dress the same way as you guys did in England, or no?
It was more relaxed, a lot more relaxed. And I didn't even know what a pair of jeans. I mean, I didn't have a pair of jeans. We didn't see a lot of that stuff because, it wasn't fashionable. I don't even remember if I ever saw them until I came to the United States.
Wow. What was your reaction like when you saw everyone dressing differently, more relaxed?
I didn't.
Did you like conform to that, or did you still dress the way you dressed?
I kind of dressed the way I dressed.
Yeah.
Not like wearing hats and everything, and I relaxed a lot, but I still wish they dressed up more sometimes. I dress up because I like it, and I feel good when I do it. But that's the way I feel. I would like to see some more dressing.
You wish that would come back
just
now?
A little bit.
Yeah, I like that style, but like,
Nobody
I don't know how it was back then. Like if it was cheaper clothing or like it was more reasonable, but now it's like the nice clothing is expensive.
I know.
Like the suits and tie that they used to wear back then, now it's like $1,000.
Yeah, you can't
for
afford
the whole
it.
set. Yeah, so I would like to dress that way, but just my pockets aren't that deep.
Right, exactly.
But I do like the style that you guys had back then. That was really nice.
It just makes me feel really strange when I see the old times, and it's the time when I was a teenager. When they go on the TV and say back in the 50s or back in the 60s. yeah. So, is there anything else I can?
And what were your like you say your parents were like, you said you wouldn't know where your dad would go when he would go put out the
fires.
The fires.
Yeah, we would just
like. Would he tell you guys stories about what he would see and stuff like that when they were getting bombed?
Not a lot. Not that I remember.
Mm-hmm.
My sister, my elder sister, she was very affected by the war. She was very nervous and everything. She hated it when we had to go down to the shelter. And yeah, I was young enough that it didn't affect me.
You didn't really know what was going on?
Not a lot of it. I just wondered when I came back from, it's strange, I wonder when I came back from Wales whether that was really my mother's picture or whether somebody else was imitating.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was a little girl. I remember she sent me this beautiful book with butterflies in it. And I said to my sisters, it wasn't my birthday. I couldn't believe I got it. And then I couldn't read it because I couldn't read.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Anyway.
So what was your parents' reactions when you told them that you're moving to the U.S.?
Well, my sister had already moved here. And I was the last one at home. My eldest sister, she married an Englishman, but they traveled the world. He had a kind of job where they went. Okay. And so by the time I left, they just knew it was the best for me. And then at the end of the 60s, my eldest sister was back in England, and then they brought my mother and father over here on a boat.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And that was in the 60s?
Mm-hmm. The end of the 60s.
Okay. Like, was there planes that would go back and forth?
But I don't know why they went by boat, but they decided to. And my other sister had 5 children, and they were born in different countries.
Wow.
They traveled. And they ended up in California.
Okay.
My mother and father ended up in Salina.
Salina, Kansas.
Yeah.
Okay. Why did they pick Salina, Kansas? Was it because
my sister was still there and I was living there too.
Okay.
There.
So when you first got here, you went straight to Kansas? Or did you stop at a big city?
Went straight to Kansas.
So like you took the plane and it dropped you right off in Kansas, or did you first have to go to like New York?
Like,
you know how you have to go through customs?
Yeah. I went to New York and I came over in a propeller plane.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the wind was so bad we had to go to Iceland and get Greenland and get more fuel to get to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I got there so late, I missed my connection to Kansas City. I had a 6-hour layover.
In Greenland?
No, in New York.
In New York?
Yeah.
And this was 1961?
Mm-hmm.
And how was New York? Like, do you remember seeing the skyline?
I was so scared by then. I didn't go outside the airport because I didn't know what to do. Wow. And so I just stayed there. But, we didn't have phones. So my sister's in Kansas City waiting for me, and she didn't know what happened. Okay. Didn't have any idea. And I got there, and then we drove straight to Chipson. Well, the only thing I'd seen like that was on the television was the Western shows, the cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I thought I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that's all I got. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to ask?
Yeah, because I did want to ask you, when you first moved here from England, like, did you go to the school you wanted to do or study what you wanted to do?
I was 21 when I moved here.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working. I went to work at the paper.
So you got a job immediately after you moved here? I had to have a job
before I came.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did your sister help you get that job before you got here?
Yeah, she's the one that got it.
Okay.
She said the guy was in the post office and she was, and she said to her person that was taking care of her, she said, my sister's coming and I got to get her a job. And he said, I can give her a job.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got here, and it was really funny.
And how was that working in the newspaper?
Oh, there's only two of us. I just was the girl that called, answered the phone, and he printed the paper.
Okay.
Well, but it was a job, so that's why I could come.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was all right.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to work in Salina in an office.
Okay. And you said you got here in the 60s, and that's like when the civil rights movement is going on. Did you know much about that before you moved here to the U.S.?
No.
You didn't know nothing about it?
No. Mm-mm.
Did you guys like experience that over there in England?
No.
So like blacks and whites were normal over there? Like they were equal?
Well, when I was growing up, I never know a black person. I didn't see one.
Really?
But they came to England because that was the Commonwealth, and they could come to London without having to have a passport because they were part of the English Commonwealth.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of, and then.
So if some of them were from like Africa,
yeah,
and they were under British rule, they could go up there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so when I went to London and saw all these black people, I was a little scared.
You were scared of them? Mm-hmm. Really? Why?
Because I didn't know. All I'd seen was bad things about them, you know.
Oh, okay.
And so, it took me a while. And now I'm not scared or anything. I like them very much.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But like, did you guys have like the same thing like here in the U.S., like where it was like the Jim Crow laws? Did you guys have that over there as well with them, or no? Like where this is the white bathroom, this is the colored bathroom. Did you guys have that over there?
No.
So everyone went to the same bathroom?
Yeah.
Or they could eat at the same restaurants?
They were the same people.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, but as I say, where I grew up, we didn't have any, so I didn't know. Oh. Yeah, but they weren't ever treated like that at all.
Wow. So how was that like when you're coming over here? Did you see that?
Not until I got married and went went down to New Orleans, and we stopped at the town, and they had separate bathrooms, and I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. I thought, I didn't even know that existed. Yeah, I think it was really hard for black people, and I'm glad they've got a little bit better. I mean, they could be a lot better, but it's better than it was.
But it was a shock when you got here.
Yeah.
And like when you would hear about like the riots and stuff like that, like what was your opinion on that?
Actually, I didn't. When I got here, I didn't really understand it but then, as I was here and I saw more of what was happening, I understood why they were rioting. Mm-hmm. And they had a tough road, a very tough road. So.
And what about like in the 70s and like mid 60s, early 70s when the Vietnam War was going on?
I didn't know much about it.
You didn't know much about that either?
I didn't know much about it because I had children, and I didn't watch TV a lot, so I didn't see the news, so I didn't know much about it. I was so busy. I went to beauty school, and I had three children, so
you didn't have time to be checking the news.
No, I didn't check
the TV.
Just check getting them ready for bed and school, and yeah.
That's interesting because before I interviewed you today, I interviewed another lady, Louise. She's from Missouri. And she also told me the same thing, that when I asked her about this, if she knew about like the civil rights movement and the Vietnam War, she said that she didn't know about it at that time because she was too busy taking care of her kids. Like, like she was like, we're more worried about putting food on the table than what was like going on in the outside world.
Right, exactly.
Was that like the same? Yeah. Same way you approached it as well?
Yeah.
You're just too busy. You don't have time to like.
Yeah, I wasn't interested, basically. And I didn't really get. Now I get nervous all the time because of the news, so I watch it every night, but I don't like to. I like to watch it so I know what's going on. But yeah, so no, I didn't. I never thought of. I voted, but I didn't think of. I just voted for the man that seemed to be the best person for the job.
Who did you vote for first when you were first allowed to vote here in the U.S.? Who did you vote for? Like the first time you voted for a president? Was it JFK? Or
yeah, it was JFK. when I came over. Because, no, he came in 63, didn't he? Yeah, I was having a baby when he came president. I voted for him, yes.
And what was your reaction when he got assassinated?
I was devastated. I just couldn't believe that it happened.
Like a lot of people, when I asked them that, they're like, "Oh yeah, I knew where I was." Did you know where you was when that happened to him? Do you remember?
I was having a baby.
So you were at the hospital?
I was in the hospital. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So my son was born in 63.
Your son was born in 63. Wow. What month?
November.
November. Oh wow. So kind of around the same dates when he was killed. What day?
30th.
30th? Okay, so just a week after. Wow.
Yeah. I can remember being in the hospital and hearing when he was having his funeral on the horses, and hearing that clop, 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 clop when he was being born. So he was, I don't know how that is. He was born in 63. When did he die?
I think like the 21st or 22nd
of 63.
Yeah, like 19th to 22nd, I think.
Okay, because they had the funeral, so that's why. And he was born on the 30th. That's probably true. That's probably what happened.
Yeah.
But I remember, I just couldn't believe it happened, and then I couldn't believe that the guy they got in jail got killed, so we never knew anything about it.
Do you believe it was like an inside job? Since they killed the killer?
Yeah, that's what I thought when they killed the killer. Yeah.
Do you still think that now?
I don't know, because you can't believe anything that anybody tells you anymore. So even the news, you don't know what to believe.
And like growing up, like since you were part of like you could say British Empire, when it was like really big back then, like what was your, like the people who lived there, like what was your guys' thoughts on like colonizing other countries like India, Africa, all those countries?
Well, most of that happened before I really grew up, you know. But and the news wasn't so broad then. You didn't see so much about other countries because we didn't have TV anyway. So I don't know what people felt. I really don't know what the people that were living in London, where they were coming. I know later on they got disgusted because they were taking all the jobs. I do know that.
So there was kind of like a sentiment where there is like now in the U.S. where like all the immigrants, people say like the immigrants are taking the job. That was the same reaction you guys had back then when like the Africans or the Indians were coming in. You guys, they're taking our jobs.
They would take the bus driver's job. We used to have a guy on the bus that take care of the tickets, and they were always taking those jobs. But
it seems crazy that was happening back then, and it's still happening now, like 80 years later.
Yeah,
that's crazy to think about. It's like nothing new. To us, it feels new because it's like the first time we're witnessing it. But to you, this is like it's been happening forever, which is crazy to think about.
Yes, yeah, it's sad. It's really sad that we haven't grown up enough, basically to stop this nonsense. And of course, having this country that they were all immigrants to begin with, and I do agree with them getting rid of the immigrants that they have been in trouble with the police and that. I don't agree with the ones that they got rid of.
They're just taking like families and little kids.
And that bothers me a lot. And that's one of the things that really bothers me, because it reminds me of Hitler, because that's what he did. And so
when he was in power, and say he would have, was there like a fear in your gut in like England that he would take over and like take away you guys from like your families?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I was a little girl, but I didn't hear. And when you were children in England, you weren't included in conversations a lot. You were children, and you were seen and not heard. Basically. And so I wasn't aware of the world troubles. I didn't hear about them. I'm sure the adults were speaking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is what, and when it first started, I told my friends, I said, this is so much like Hitler, it really bothers me. And one of my friends says, yes, but they're only taking away the criminals. And I said, no, they're not. They're going into houses and taking, and one child was in custody for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it bothers me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what the answer is.
And talking about being seen and not heard,
Yeah.
I have a question. I know like back then, like women didn't have many rights. Like you couldn't have your own bank account, your own credit card here in the U.S. Was that the same way in England?
Well, we didn't have credit cards.
Mm-hmm.
And bank accounts I don't know too much about because we never had enough money to put in a bank.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really answer you that truthfully. But
like were women allowed to like say your mom or your aunts or in general like in England, like were women allowed to like discuss like amongst the men? Like were they allowed to like buy their own property?
I don't think so.
Cars and stuff like that?
I don't think so.
So it's kind of like the same as here in the U.S.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where like the man takes care of all like the bills and
that
stuff
was
like
supposed
that.
to be the deal.
And the woman stays in the house?
Yeah, but a lot of them, because World War II, they all worked. All the women did, because the men they were gone.
Mm-hmm. They were at war, and you guys were in the factories working, like your mothers and your aunts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And when you're getting married, like, did you discuss those rules with like your husband? Like, did you guys like set rules of what you could and couldn't do?
Oh no, not when I got married.
Like, did you guys like before you got married, like say your boyfriend and girlfriend, and you say, okay, these are my rules. Like what? Like for example, let's say his rules, like you have to be home, cooking for me or taking care of the kids, and then say maybe you said another set of rules. Like, did you guys ever come up with that or
no?
You didn't?
No.
So just
no,
like,
but he did. I was able to be at home because he and his family had a construction company, I was able to be at home. But that's I would love to be with the children, but I missed company, adult company.
mm-hmm.
And I got friendly with the neighbors and that. But my husband wasn't very outgoing, and I am. So, but I was so busy. Then I decided I wanted to be a hairdresser, just work part-time. And so I went to school, and that got me out of the house a little bit. And my sister happened to live there, and she took care of the children for me. But I always love being around people.
Mm-hmm.
Still do, even though I can't get out and drive around.
Mm-hmm. Well, you still enjoy talking to people and
yes, I do.
Meeting new people, learning about them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and that's why it's so good at Prairie Commons, because every Friday we have a breakfast. Prairie Commons puts it on for us, and several people come down here, and I can't remember names very well, but just having to visit we have tables. We have tables, and they're very good about getting people together here. Mm-hmm. We play canasta and Mexican train and do puzzles a lot, and so this place is a very nice place to live. So I've been here 14 years.
14 years, wow.
Yeah, after my husband died, when we moved from Salina here, we bought a mobile home because we couldn't buy a house, and I didn't want to like living in it when he wasn't alive, especially when the tornadoes came and I had 2 little dogs. So my daughter went out and she found this place, and I like it because you can have animals here. We got lots of little dogs here.
Oh, okay.
Right now, mine passed away, so I have a cat now.
Mm-hmm.
But,
that keeps you a little bit of company.
Yeah. But as I say, I still work one day a week. I work in a hair salon, just dusting the shelves, folding just one day, just to be around the people.
Wow. At 87 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because some people in our generation, they don't even want to work.
I know, it's so funny you should say that, because I broke my arm and I was doing facials at the time. And I went to the doctor and I keep saying, when can I go back to work? You know, he said, it's so strange you're sitting in here saying, when can you go back to work? And the next door, there's a kid that's saying, will you please write it so I don't have to go back to work?
I know, it's like, you're like, I don't know, like in your guys' upbringing, like,
yeah,
I don't know if it's because how you were raised, or
well, I think
it was just a thing to do back then, like you go to work. And
I think a lot of the trouble now is there's no respect for each other, a lot of it, and there's no devotion, not all of it, but there's not as much devotion, because you've got so many other things you can do. You can be on the phone a lot, and we didn't have that. And it wasn't as difficult for us because we didn't have as many things to distract us. And I think that's why it's changed. Everybody doesn't seem to be as involved with their work as they used to be. I mean, not saying, I mean, a lot of people do, but it seems like a lot of the younger people, as you say, don't want to go to work.
You think there's too many distractions now than when you were growing up?
Yeah. And I can't, you have, it's hard to be old and try to go along with the with the improvements, especially the telephone. All the old people have trouble with the telephone, but we didn't have computers. We didn't know anything about that stuff.
So like when those first things came out, like what was your reaction? Like, did you want to test out this new technology that was coming out?
I wanted a phone, but and I did try to do the computer, and I had one for a while. But it's so much more, even since it first came out, it's so much more complicated now. There's so many different things that when it goes wrong for you on the phone, on that, to push a button. I'm scared to push the button in case I do something wrong. And it's that kind of thing that's hard now for old people. So, but we still kicking.
Yeah. So you now you know how to move like a smartphone and everything?
Well, I know I can send a text.
Okay.
And I can read an email on it, and I know there's lots of other things, and I can take a photo, but I don't know a lot of it. And then remembering it all is difficult for some of us. Not everybody, but it's because you guys do it so quickly. We don't know how to do it.
We're not able to learn because we're going too
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah. But I'm really grateful that I'm still here to see all that stuff. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. And as I say, it takes me a little bit longer to comprehend it and get used to it.
And on another note, when you guys first moved here, how easy or how hard was it to buy like a home that you remember?
Well, I didn't have that. It wasn't as hard as it is now. Wasn't the first home my husband and I bought? It was like 19,000, and that was a
really
19,000.
Wow. What year was this?
Well, maybe I've got that wrong. It was 1964, 5, around there. I know it was 19. Oh. Because we just bought it from the person that was moving, and it was a 3-bedroom basement and a nice yard. And
wow, yeah, I think it's like $500,000 now.
Yeah, I know.
Can you believe that? Like how inflated the prices are now.
Yeah.
Like that's what a lot of our generation feels like. We can't get ahead because
right.
the prices are inflated, and then the taxes and all the maintenance is inflated, and the income is staying the same.
I know. I really feel sorry for this generation that you're in, because I got a grandson that's 24, and he doesn't date very much because he can't afford to date. He graduated from KU, and he's been trying to get into medical school, and he's taken that exam and just missed it by 2 or 3 points. But
wow.
But he's working for a doctor, actually, there's a name for it, but he writes down all the notes for the doctor, and then he works up at the Rock Chalk up there.
Oh, really? He works here at Rock Chalk Park? Wow.
Yeah.
While he's going to school?
No, he's graduated.
Oh, he graduated already?
Yeah, he graduated 2 or 3 years ago. He graduated at Christmas time because he got his grades, and he was about 10th in his class, but he just has a hard time trying to pass this exam. I don't know. And so I know how hard it is. I know, and I think it's just, why does everything have to be so expensive? And because the cars is the way they're built now, you can't fix that yourself. It makes it. I'm glad. It would be hard, and getting jobs for you young people, it's hard.
Was it hard back then? When do you remember? Or was it pretty easy, like to get a job?
It was easy.
Even without a degree, it was pretty easy.
Yeah. That's what bothered me a lot about England, was it you couldn't have a chance to get a degree after you were 11 years old because you didn't pass that exam. You couldn't go to college.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you went to public school, you couldn't go to college?
Wow. No, not then.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, they had a middle school. Like they had the school where you went to the public school, like you have middle grades, that, and then they had this other school that you could go to when you pass that exam, and then you could apply for college from that other school.
Okay. But you would go from elementary, middle school, high school, and then college?
Not high school. We didn't have a high school.
You didn't have high school back then?
No.
Really?
I went to school. I graduated in the public school at 15.
Wow.
Went to work.
So right after 15, everyone was working after that, or you went to college?
No. When you were 15, you could you could apply for college. I can't remember what that middle school age was, but so I started work at 15.
Wow. And what were you doing at 15? Where did you start working at?
Let me think. Oh, my sister was an accountant, and so she let me come into that office, and I was learning, and that's when you counted it all in your head. There were no computers.
So it's much harder.
It was hard. And I was better at sports than I was at school. And then I worked there, and then I got that job in London. But I was a junior. You were a junior because I was 18.
Okay.
And then after that, I got my sister married an American, and they came back from the United States to England. They were stationed back there. And I went to live with them by the ocean, and I worked on the airbase, in the office on the airbase of not the officers' club, the other club. And then I went back to where I lived after she left, and I went back and worked in the little office. Yeah.
So your sister married a soldier?
And
he was stationed in
England, yeah.
When they both met each other?
Yeah, in the 50s. Yeah.
So that's why she moved over here.
Do
you think if she hadn't met him and hadn't moved over here, would you have moved over here?
Probably not. I wouldn't know anything about it.
Wow.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
That's so cool.
In the end, all the family ended up here. My mother and father.
So you don't have any more family in England?
No. Well, I probably have cousins I don't know, but nobody that I go and see or hear from.
And do like all your like grandchildren and great grandchildren, do they have the accent or not anymore?
They never had it.
They never had it. Once they were born here.
They were American.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So cool.
And people say, how did you keep it? Well, you don't keep it. It's just there. It's just, it comes out with the English accent because that's where you think of it in your head. I didn't try to keep it, and I lost a lot of it, especially working as a hairdresser. I was around American people a lot.
Did you ever feel like you needed to like conform? Because I know there's like a lot of people who come from like other countries and they want to like take away their accent and like be more like American. Did you ever have that feeling of doing that?
No, I didn't. I guess it's because my sister was here and
you were proud to be from where you were from and continue your guys' tradition.
So, that is as I say, had a good life. Not always easy, but a good life.
So what would you say like to younger generation and I don't know, people struggling or I don't know, going through things based on like what you've lived through? Like what would be some insights that you would tell them that you would want to leave us? So maybe we could like teach our grandchildren as we get older.
I would ask them to try to be respectable. I mean, respect other people, and be proud of who they are, and work hard, and have recreation time too. I really think if we could learn how to, especially respect elders or the adults, and not think that you know it all, which all teenagers do. But where I grew up, you didn't do that because you just didn't do it. I mean, when an older person came in, you got out of your chair and let them sit down, and it was more respect as they got older. But I think that all they can do is try to believe what they believe and work for what they want to work for and never give up.
Do you think now there's not really that respect for elders or adults as there used to be?
No. I don't, not when I was a child, and no. But when I was a child, we didn't get to choose if you were making plans for anything. You weren't included in the planning. And I don't think that's necessarily good. But that way, you just kept quiet. You didn't talk a lot.
The adults made the plan and you followed it.
Yeah.
Did you ever see like that, what you're talking about, like with your grandchildren or your great-grandchildren? Like where maybe they don't respect their parents or maybe...
They don't disrespect them. I think it's the parents' fault, basically. They're just not strict enough with them. And I hate to say that word, but they let them get away with more things than I thought they should. But I keep quiet because I'm a great grandma. So I don't I don't want to lose them. I still want them to be around me, and that's so I just keep quiet and just go with the flow.
Do they still come? Do your grandchildren and great grandchildren still come visit you often?
My children do because they live here, and my grandchildren do. They're both busy, but they do things for me. They do a lot of things. The great grandchildren, not so much. It's different. It's just different between a grandma and a great grandma. That it's just different. It's not quite as close. Maybe it is for some, but I feel not quite as close. And what bothers me is when you talk to them, they don't answer.
Are they on their phones, or they just don't? Are they just shy, or?
No, they're on their phones or on their, their tablets.
Okay.
So, and I feel that I feel like that they miss so much out of life because they get so much so early in life. They don't seem to me have things to try to achieve, to look forward to, because they've already they've already done. It's just not so exciting to them
Because they've seen it all on the tablet already.
Yeah, and they've done. Yeah,
they're exposed to too much at a young age.
Yeah, that's the old people talking.
No, I agree with you. Like the younger kids, like that are growing up now, they are on the like iPads and on like the TV the whole time.
I
have a cousin who she's staying with us right now, and she's in 2nd grade and she still doesn't know how to read.
That's sad.
And I remember when I was like in kindergarten, I already knew how to read books, and she like struggles reading one page.
That is sad.
And it's because she's always on the iPad.
Yeah, they don't. And I think.
And without it, they can't do anything. Like their brain is like racing to go back to that.
Yeah, they don't think about anything else. That's all they think about. And that's kind of sad because they miss a lot. They miss a lot of it, achieving it themselves, because they've already seen it on the iPad. That's the way I feel about it. So,
well, Barbara, thank you for sharing your story with us.
Okay.
And for allowing us to learn a little bit more about you and your upbringing in England and coming over to the U.S. in the 60s and what it was like growing up, raising children, the careers that you've been through, and where you're at now as a great grandma and a grandma. So thank you for sharing your time and your story with us.
You're welcome.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.